Hi everyone and welcome to Chess with Arsalan. In this game we are going to see how Anatoly Karpov, a positional master, is going to use only an open file to gain an advantage and convert it to a win against one of the greatest chess players in the world, Garry Kasparov, probably the greatest chess player of all time. So this is the game that was played in the World Chess Championship match in 1990 in Lyon. We are in game number 17 and Karpov is having white pieces, and we are going to join the game after move 21, rook to e8 by Anatoly Karpov. By Garry Kasparov, excuse me. So here Anatoly Karpov is having a c file open, so he puts his rook on c1, and I'm going to divide this advantage conversion into few steps. So step number one is that Karpov is gaining the c file, is controlling the c file. So in response, Kasparov played queen to b7. Here is a very good question. What would have happened if Anatoly Karpov would have played knight to c4? This is a mistake, and the winning move here is knight to d2 using the pin on the c file, and soon white will be picking up a pawn and would be winning in the endgame. So this is not a very wise choice to play knight to c4 in this position. Kasparov played queen to b7, and here comes step 2. He is advancing the d pawn to create an outpost square for his rook on c6. He's playing d5. And the point is that here Kasparov cannot challenge the rook with rook to c8. Why? Because after rook takes c8, queen takes c8, bishop takes e7, and now white has gained a pawn and has a protected passed pawn. The win would be very easy for a player of Karpov caliber. So after d5, here Garry Kasparov played knight to c4, and now we are approaching to the step 3, removing the obstruction from the c file, and Karpov has done this by playing knight to d2. He's threatening to take a pawn with knight takes c4, and Kasparov here is actually forced to take on d2. But the tricky point here is that you should not play the automatic move queen takes d2. Why? Because after that Kasparov can play b4, and this creates a very good post for the bishop on g7. Next move he will play bishop c3, and again obstructing the c file. So after knight takes d2, what is the best move? It's bishop takes d2, and now black cannot play b4 and place his bishop on the c3 square. So the third step has been carried out very well. Now Garry Kasparov played rook to c8. Now we are coming to step 5, seizing the control of the outpost on the c6. So here that's why Anatoly Karpov played rook to c8. Again, tactics that does not allow Kasparov to take on c6, because after rook takes c6, d takes c6, and queen takes c6, here Kasparov can play queen to d8, and after bishop f8, bishop h6 will be checkmate in next move. So here after rook to c8, Kasparov played bishop e5, and bishop is vacating the g7 square and is placing itself on e5 in order to control c7 square. And now rook takes c6 is a threat here, as a matter of the fact. So in the next step, Karpov is playing bishop c3, forcing the bishop on e5 to leave this square. Other alternatives, for example, here instead of bishop c3, queen c2 is not going to work that well, because after rook takes c6, d takes c6, queen to c7, this is an unclear position, because yes, white is still having a passed pawn, but the c7 is well controlled by bishop and queen, and soon the king will join the let's say passing route of the pawn, and this pawn will never reach to the back rank. So here after bishop e5 by Garry Kasparov, probably the best move is bishop to c3. White is trying to eliminate the bishop from e5, and here there are a couple of options. In the game, Karpov played bishop to b8. You cannot play rook takes c6 because after d takes, queen to c7. Here white can play bishop takes e5, and after taking on e5, queen to d8 check, king to g7 c7, and this pawn is going to go home and converting itself to the to another queen. So after bishop c3, rook takes c6 is not an option. The same goes for bishop c3. You cannot take on c3 as well because after queen takes c3, if you take on c6 after d takes c6 and queen to c7, white will have very difficult, black will have very difficult endgame because this pawn on c6 will be very dangerous. And if you play rook to e8, then here Karpov can play queen c5, and next move queen to, rook to c7, and then e7 pawn goes, and another time that we are having a protected pass pawn. Let's go back to the game. Bishop c3 was just played, and here Kasparov played bishop to b8. And now we are in step 7, putting the queen on d4, threatening mate, and also trying to take control of c5 square. This is the next step in the converting of the advantage. So here Anatoly Karpov plays queen to d4, mate is threatened, and in response Kasparov played f6. Now rook takes c6 is a threat. Black is posing a threat to white because after d takes and queen takes, queen to d8, and after king to f7, queen takes b8, queen takes c3. Now that bishops are exchanged, it is black who has let's say winning chances in this position because he has an extra pawn and he can try to win the game. So after queen d4 f6, now white has to move his bishop in order to not allowing after rook takes, d takes, and queen takes, not allowing the bishop to be hanging on c3. But what is the best square for the bishop in this position? This comes to step 8. White played bishop takes bishop a5, and by placing the bishop on a5, he is actually controlling the c7 square, and this c7 square is actually very important because it's one of the squares that after rook takes and d takes, the pass pawn is going to pass by. So bishop a5 was played, bishop d6 by Garry Kasparov, and we are coming to step 9 of converting the advantage. Support the rook so you can have control of the open file. Queen to c3. Now white is threatening to take on c8. Basically rook either have to move to e8 or take on c6. If you take on c6, which did not happen in the game, after d takes c6, now this pawn is going to go home and make another queen. That's why after queen c3, Kasparov played rook to e8, and now we are coming to step 10. Black is let's say powerless, and the only thing that white has to do is to play on the c file and increase the pressure along the c file. So he played a3 first, and after king to g7, g3, bishop e5, and queen c5. And now white wants to place his bishop on c7, exchange the bishops, put the rook on c7, and try to create pressure on e7. So here Kasparov played h5, and after bishop c7, we reach to this position. If black exchanges on d7 after rook takes c7, then this pawn will fall. So after bishop c7, Kasparov played bishop to a1, and now bishop f4 comes, evacuating the c7 square. Now white is basically posing very simple threat, rook to c7 and take on e7. The point is that here black cannot return his bishop to e5, because if you do that, after bishop takes e5, f takes e5, rook c7 comes anyway. So after bishop f4, Kasparov played queen to d7, and here rook comes to c7 finally, and the rest of the game is actually quite easy. Kasparov played queen to d8, and take very close attention to this file and this pin, to this rank and this pin. So here white played using this pin, he played d6. So again, there are many threads taking on e7, pushing the pawn. All of these threads are on the air. Kasparov tried to, let's say, deviate the bishop by playing g5. But here, Anatoly Karpov played an excellent move, d7. Now he's threatening to take on e8, and after that taking on e7, forking king and queen. So in response, Kasparov played rook to f8. And after bishop d2, which prepares bishop to come to a5, Kasparov played bishop e5, and after rook to b7, here black resigned. Why? Because white is threatening to play rook to a7, take on a6, and after that bishop a5, driving the queen away from the d8 square, and finally try to make a queen. So this was the position that Kasparov resigned on move 40 and resigned the game number 17. I hope you enjoyed this video. Follow us for more videos. Goodbye and have a good day.